Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture. And today we got the second of our list, the top 10 best hit songs of 2015. You know, of all the lists that I put together throughout the last weeks of this year, this is probably going to be my favorite because it's where I feel the most populist. It's the acknowledgement that after listing the absolute worst hits of the year, there is actually good stuff that deserves attention too, and that the mainstream public actually agreed on it for once. And really, 2015 was a good year. Yeah, hip-hop and country in the mainstream kind of struggled, but there's a lot of great pop songs pulling on rock, synth-pop, funk, and even R&B. And while I wouldn't quite say this year's hits are quite as strong as a year like 2012 or 2011, it handily beats out the last 2 years I've been putting together this list, not just a number of great songs, but in their actual quality. And again, just to clarify the rules, the songs had to land on the Billboard year-end Hot 100 for 2015. The deep cuts, stuff outside the mainstream, that's coming up next. But this was the good stuff that actually managed to get popular. So let's not waste any more time, let's start off with our honorable mentions, shall we?
You got me in chains for your love, but I wouldn't change. No, I wouldn't change this love. Trying to break the chains, but the chains only bring me.
You know, if we're looking for an artist that pulled off a pretty solid face turn after a really bad opening single, it would be Nick Jonas capitalizing on 50 Shades of Grey for Chains. And unlike nearly every other charting song associated with that movie, it actually played up some minimalist gothic swell, brought in an acoustic guitar with a hand clap on the chorus, before it breaks to something a lot more hollow and bleak. It reminds me a little bit of Sexy Back by Justin Timberlake. Well, it's because of the BDSM imagery and because Nick Jonas really wants to sound like Justin Timberlake, but not only does this song handle its crescendo a little bit better, it also lets Nick Jonas play off a really damn solid hook that can alternatively be seen as not sexual at all, but instead focusing on Nick Jonas's issues with fame, which is kind of interesting because it's rare you see a singer admit that he's getting a visceral thrill out of fame, even though it's not really all that healthy. I'm not wild about the bridge on this song, it goes a little bit long with all the pitch shifting, but really, it's a minor gripe because it's a damn good song.
When I'm fucked up, that's a real me. When I'm fucked up, that's a real me, babe.
Okay, fine, it did grow on me a bit. Once I was able to get past the fact that no, it's not as good as anything off of Thursday or Echoes of Silence, I actually started liking this, mostly in how it's the giant middle finger to a mainstream audience that would expect The Weeknd to sell out or make conventional pop music. Granted, his next single, In the Night, was right along that line, probably have a fair shot at making my list next year, but I like what The Hills does regardless. Yeah, the bass swamps out most of the song, and I wish the percussion picked up a little bit more momentum earlier, but the core of bitter nihilism on the song actually makes it work, where the fractured bits of ego lash out at everyone judging him or trying to change him, as the eerie synths play off a lo-fi guitar and the ear-piercing scream that gives the song a surprisingly potent edge. It's punishingly unsexy, which, yeah, that's the point. It fits with the arc of the album, but it's also the moment that shreds the veil of The Weeknd's moody bad boy image into the train wreck beneath it. It's looking into the picture of Dorian Gray and seeing that picture look right back.
I just wanna look good for you, good for you. I just wanna look good for you, good for you. Let me show you how proud I am to be yours. Leave this dress a mess on the floor. Still look good for you, good for you.
Yeah, it's not quite the return to form that I expected, and it really didn't last beyond this song to the rest of the album, but if Selena Gomez wants to play towards Lana Del Rey, this would be the way to do it. Teaming up with A$AP Rocky's production to add some misty atmosphere was a really good first step, and with the muted snap and the subtle crescendos in the pre-chorus, this song bleeds modern opulence. And yet there's a subtle undercurrent of danger to the song. She references Midas, and the verses combined with a dead-eyed delivery kind of makes it a little bit unsettling in a good way. But I'd argue what makes the track really work is A$AP Rocky. If he's gonna become some swaggering asshole that would abuse this supposedly submissive behavior, there would be a lot of validity to the criticism that the song has some unsettling implications. But he doesn't do that. In fact, most of his verse is glorifying her, taking care of protecting her image and feeding back into that opulence. In other words, yeah, it's an ego trip, but it's for the both of them, and they're both owning that image. And yeah, I can admit it, it's kind of sexy as hell, and probably one of the best things that either of them did all year. Nice work.
Going to forever to break this. I need
only barely scraped into the bottom of the list, but I'm so happy it did. I remember being very pleasantly surprised by how much I mostly like Elle Henderson's Chapter 1, even despite some Psycho Records production and some occasionally uneven points. And I wouldn't even say Ghost is the best song on that album, but there's a ton to like here. I love the Elle Henderson's lower range that anchors a great hook with a strong guitar roll against these huge drums and a really firm bass line. And I really dig how the lyrics focus on not quite being over the guy, even though he was absolutely toxic. It was true love, and that's gonna leave a lasting scar, even if she tries to put it behind her. But really, the song is here because of that hook and that vocal line. Tons of propulsive momentum and a damn great song to boot. If you haven't checked out Elle Henderson's Chapter 1, I highly recommend you do so. This is lower than I originally thought it would be, mostly because I think Elle King is nailing that balance between grunge and retro blues in her vocal delivery, and that fuzzed out guitar line is goddamn awesome, especially balanced against a great dirty drum line with acoustic elements, especially that brief solo. The lyrics are a little bit shallow, I have to admit that, because while Selena Gomez and A$AP Rocky were played off each other for their ego trip, Elle King simply flips the gender binary on your standard swaggering love 'em and leave 'em song. And once the novelty fades a little bit, you realize it's the same sort of trashy fantasy that's mostly said by Elle King vamping up with some real grit. And you know what? Sometimes that's enough.
Give me one good reason why I should never make a change. Baby, if you owe me, then all of this will go away.
Arguably one of the biggest sleeper hits of this year, and one that the UK got a while before the States, Budapest is the sort of track that kind of sneaks up on you. A pretty straightforward, light folk song where George Ezra lists the things that he'd leave behind for this girl, and that he'd always do so. But there's lots of little subtleties to this track that I really appreciate. The gentle, low guitar roll, the subtle counter melody in the keys, that little flutter on the chorus, how well George Ezra's soulful baritone plays in the hook, and a welcome little lo-fi segment for the guitar solo. Yeah, the song's entirely unassuming, but I found myself coming back to it a lot this year because it makes those subtle and sometimes disparate elements work pretty damn well together. I don't expect to hear another George Ezra song on the radio, but you know what? I wouldn't mind if I did, because this pretty damn solid.
She has her arms around your waist. You're the balance that will keep her safe. Have you ever felt the warm embrace of a leather seat between your legs?
You know, it's really damn easy to get annoyed with Macklemore. He's awkward, he stumbles more often than he should, and he's so damn earnest that you think he would stick the landing better than he does. But at the end of the day, he's got a solid flow, a good sense of humor, real personality, and he's putting his money where his mouth is. Who else in 2015 bothered to round up a selection of golden age MCs and make a ridiculously fun song about mopeds? And look, you don't have to tell me the song is stupid and kind of a mess. Not helped by Macklemore flubbing more rhymes than he really should, making a lot of stupid jokes and then rapping about his scrotum. And yeah, this song is not trying to say or do anything on bragging about the economically efficiency of a moped, but as an homage to the silly pop rap sides of the golden age, this really works for me. The production is broad and goofy with the cowbell and the horns, the slick funk with the bass line, and when the pianos come in for the chorus and Eric Nally howling his lungs out, it really clicks for me. Kool D, Grandmaster Kaz, and Melle all deliver a ton of presence on their lines, and yeah, for as many dumb jokes as Macklemore makes, there are a bunch that really do stick the landing for me, especially in the final verse, The Neighbor, where his vocal delivery is just great there. For everyone who says that Ray Shrimmer is fun, this is all the refutation I need, because this song is absolutely wonderful. So yeah, that's a good start. Now on to the really great stuff, starting with number 10. You know, it's rare when everyone everywhere decides that a song is awesome and thus should be huge, and recently it seems to come with songs that call back to the past while still having a bit of a modern touch. Now the best example of this is Fuck You by CeeLo Green, and while I don't think this song is quite as good as that modern classic, it was the biggest song of 2015, for a very good reason.
Girls hit you hallelujah. Girls hit you hallelujah. Girls hit you hallelujah. Cause Uptown Funk don't give it to you. Cause Uptown Funk don't give it to you. Cause Uptown Funk don't give it to you. Saturday night and we in the spot. Don't believe me, just watch. Come on.
Now here's something you probably don't know about the song. Outside the fact that it's funky and it's got a great groove and Bruno Mars is just owning his Morris Day impression, a lot of the structure in the song originates from an unlikely and a lot more unexpected source. All Gold Everything by Trinidad James. Seriously, go back and listen. It's pretty hard to miss. Actually, don't go back and listen because this song improves on it in every conceivable way possible. A sweet guitar lick that plays off an incredibly punchy beat with a killer bass line. And while I've never been wild about that synth choice to balance against the horns, it works with the over-the-top bounce of this song because just like All Gold Everything, this is a song about flexing and being the coolest guy in the room. And while some of the fashion is dated and the jokes are kind of goofy, he brags about being so hot dragons should retire smoother than Skippy peanut butter and that he could kiss himself, he's so pretty, but the attitude carries it. And wow, Bruno Mars is absolutely killing it to the point where it might be in the running with The Other Side as my favorite Bruno Mars song. I'm just amazed we didn't get a third album from him this year to capitalize on this track. Dude, it's been 3 years. The sooner, the better. Number 9. Okay, I came down really hard on the trend towards retro pop on my list of the worst hit songs of 2015. But the last 2 entries should prove that when retro is done right, it can work. Now, if you've been following the charts, you probably expect one other very corny and very white song to have landed on that list, because it landed on plenty other people's lists of the worst hit songs of 2015. I'm not gonna say they're entirely wrong, but let me make my case.
So no, honey, I'm good. I could have another, but I probably should not. I got somebody at home, and if I stay, I might not leave alone. No, honey, I'm good. I could have another, but I probably should not. I gotta bid you adieu to another. I will stay true. I will stay true.
You know, I get why it's easy to hate this song. It's broad, it's aggressively chipper, it's cornball to the point of basically being country music, at least the closest thing you'll find on this list, and the music video celebrating established relationships is pretty damn painful to watch, not a good sign. But the majority of the criticism is directed at the lyrical intention of the song. He's trying to play off not cheating as a big accomplishment, and I can read it as kind of smug or a little bit insufferable. And he would end up cheating in most cases if he was drunk anyways. Hell, I made many of the same criticisms of Cheerleader by Omi. So why does this work for me? Well, a big part of it is tone. I made the country comparison earlier, and when you look back to that time, it's this sort of corny song celebrating monogamy that would fit the traditional country era. I don't see the implications that he would cheat here so much as he's paying out a steady stream of compliments in order to get himself out of this jam as quickly as he can. There's a sincerity to this song, almost entirely carried by Andy Grammer's earnest, beaming delivery, almost in a screwball comedy sort of vein from the 50s or the 60s, with the sort of chintzy organ playing off the clap percussion and thicker beat only accentuating that. And I like that on the bridge, Andy Grammer does reassure this girl that she's gonna blow somebody's mind tonight, just not his. Bit of a dorky move, but it's an honest one. And that's why I think this song really works and is one of my favorites of this year. At least for me. Number 8. And on the flip side, here's a song that everybody liked, got a ton of critical acclaim, and proves that if she wants to keep doing pop music, she's got her foothold. And it's on this list.
You got that long hair, slick back, white t-shirt, and I got that good girl fade in a tight little skirt. And when we go crashing down, we come back every time, 'cause we never go out of style. We never go out of style.
You know, style is a prime example of what Taylor Swift can do at her absolute best. Sure, it's pop music, but it's a sort of wiry, focused pop music that lets her leverage her strong writing and a good melody to her advantage. A choppy guitar roll that holds its own against the sinuous bass, the piano accents, and the pre-chorus. You'd think that it'd fit more in the guitar-driven synth pop that ruled most of the indie scene this year, but Taylor Swift brings a certain elegance to the song that, yes, gives the track a certain sense of style and poise, mostly anchored in Taylor giving one of her better vocal performances, on the line between being brokenly vulnerable and effortless classy. But really, it's the lyrics that take the song up a notch for me. A picture of a fractured relationship where both might put forward a timeless image, but the cracks are plainly visible. And you know what? That's okay, too. Things are gonna break down, but that sort of humanity will always come back, and that's what anchors this song. I honestly like this track to the point I don't even care if it was supposedly about Harry Styles. The writing has a sense of universality to it that transcends boundaries. I found it way more impacting than the washed-out self-love of Blank Space to the vintage reflection of Wildest Dreams of the sloppily produced Bad Blood remix of Kendrick Lamar. If Taylor wants to make more music like this, hell, I'm on board. Number 7. Of course, then you have The Flip Side, a track that is a fairly naked imitation of what came before a good decade ago and is arguably even simpler and less nuanced. Hell, I even branded them as the lightweight version of that earlier act. And yet...
I don't know how it happened. We took the floor.
I shouldn't even have to explain why this song is unfiltered awesome, even if, yes, it is killer's light. From the new wave-esque layered guitar, the shimmering synths, the huge chorus, and that exuberant groove. And it's not like it's even touching on the panic neuroses backed by broad theatricality that made Killer's songs like Mr. Brightside and Somebody Told Me work. This is simpler and arguably more populous for the Wallflowers of the world who just get stuck overthinking their feelings when you might as well just shut the hell up and go dance. And a lot of this is anchored in Nicholas Petrica's delivery. It's goofy and kind of broad and really silly, but the sincerity behind it works. He proves to be a surprisingly emotive singer as he sees wedding bells and she just sees an escape, pushing it back against his projection because she just wants a few moments of release and fun. It coasts by on effervescent attraction, sort of the thing that gave the weirdness of the early and mid 80s so much life, and Walk the Moon nailed it. Damn fun song, definitely recommended. Number 6. Of all the songs that I picked on this list, with the exception of my number 1, and we'll get to that, I can imagine this will be the most controversial. Now, I could be wrong here. Critics in the mainstream seem to have softened on this group, given that they did drop what will probably end up being their final album. But this song isn't even from that record, but easily the best track from their album last year. And hell, this song only barely made it onto the year-end Hot 100 for 2015. What I'm all trying to say is that there's a One Direction song on this list, and it's excellent.
Everything that you've ever dreamed of disappearing when you wake up, but there's nothing to be afraid of. Even when the night changes, it will never change me and you.
I'm never gonna say that I've completely come around on One Direction. Their production's always been haphazard, the vocals have underwhelmed me, and the lyrics have dipped into some of the most naked fangirl pandering since the Backstreet Boys made Larger Than Life. Hell, you can see that in the way this video is framed. But where I think Night Changes works is in the framing and execution. It's more of a mature song as the girl goes out on a date, finally ready to get serious with this guy with real passion that will change her life. Although the relationship between this girl and the narrator will continue to last. And here's the subtle thing that makes this song work beyond the great harmonies, the gleaming guitars with muted percussion, but one of the most subtle presentations of the boy band's career. It's never specified whether the narrator is actually the person the girl is meeting with, or that it's not them entirely. Now it might be, that cigarette smoker might as well be that guy, but the pronoun usage implies that it might be different, or it's never quite clear, which frames the song in a much more interesting light. The guy might be on the sidelines, and while she's found real passion, that different connection that she has to the narrator continues on, perhaps maybe it's just as friends. Either way, it's an incredibly well-structured and heartfelt song, probably one of the best things that One Direction has ever done. They were good for something after all. I'll give them that. Number 5. It breaks my heart the States will only ever see this guy as a one-hit wonder, because his success in the UK, Canada, and pretty much the rest of the world guarantees he'll remain a big name for a while, and that's a good thing. Singer-songwriters, the sort of insane talent and presence this guy has, don't come around that often. And if you watched my list last year, you already know who he is.
Amen. Amen. Take me to church, I worship like a dog at the shrine of your life. I'll tell you my sins and you can sharpen your knife. Offer me that deathless death, the good God, let me give you my life.
You know, I wouldn't even say Take Me to Church is among my top 5 favorite songs from Hozier's self-titled album, which was one of my favorites of 2014, which speaks volumes to how damn great this track is. Yeah, it's dark and gothic, touched with a reverb and a smoky piano with subtle vocal accents before that stalking guitar line drags the track into even darker territory, taking the gospel touches and mutating them into something biblical and haunting. A tack that Algiers would later ignite in a similar passion with the self-titled album this year, with a little bit more noise and grit there. But where they went for explosive political statements, Hozier's framing is much more internal, focusing on the absolutely toxic relationship where Hozier seems to be with an outright horrendous person that giggles at a funeral, yet remains bound to her under the layered metaphor of religion. No act of depravity is below him in service of her. It's only when he can say no that he finds true happiness. And speaking as someone who has his own complicated issues with organized religion, yeah, that's a metaphor that works for me in spades. But really, the reason why Take Me to Church hits with such tremendous impact is Hozier himself. He steps more of at his richer range for this song, but he's still a vocal powerhouse, a huge find that easily outstrips so many of his contemporaries. And yet, you only gave him one hit. Why? Number 4. On the other hand, this is the sort of track you would expect from a potential one-hit wonder. A goofy yet immediately catchy sample, a vocal performance that flies in the face of everything else on mainstream radio, lyrics that are kind of oblique and off-kilter enough that make you think that they don't make a lot of sense. And yet, this song comes from one of the last big pop rock bands to cross over onto the radio, and they've been around for over a decade. And yeah, you all knew this was coming.
She wants to dance like Thurman, bury me till I confess. She wants to dance like Thurman, and I can't get you out of my head.
Oh, I am so happy this became one of Fall Out Boy's biggest hits. And yeah, it was a little controversial for it. The Munster sample that was trying for a Pulp Fiction Tarantino-esque surf rock vibe, the jittery piano line, the fact that the song is much more concerned with noisy percussion groove and overexposed vocals than what many would come to expect from Fall Out Boy. But then again, I don't know what you can expect from this band anymore. I'll be the first to admit that Thurman really shouldn't work as well as it does. The entire song is a massive ego trip, which actually characterizes a lot of songs on this list, which is interesting to ponder what it might say about me. But the attitude here is believable, mostly because it's framed by Pete Wentz as symbiotic, two badasses hooking up in a tumultuous, insane flame that would probably go 12 kinds of crazies and leave one or both of them dead. And yet it works. The sample might be blunt and might not make a lot of sense, but amidst the deranged melodrama of this song, it's one of the extremely rare cases where the less sense this song makes, the better it seems to fit with the attitude. Now, I'll admit, it is pushing that, and this song did drop from its position on the top of my list thanks to straining under all that weight, but it's still goddamn awesome, and I'm thrilled that Fall Out Boy managed to make one of their best songs in a year as a working single. Wish the album was a little bit better, but hey, we'll eventually get there. Number 3. This is probably the latest entry onto this list, and easily the one that will surprise pretty much nobody. So far, this list has shown a liking for gothic swell, tremendous vocals, emotional nuance. So what song topping the charts as we speak right now feels like such an obvious pick? Gee, can't quite think of it.
Hello from the other side. I must have called 1,000 times to tell you I'm sorry for everything that I've done. But when I call, you never seem to be home.
And again, I don't think Hello is the best song of the 25. When We Were Young, Water Under the Bridge, and River Lee all connect far stronger for me. But Hello is a powerhouse of a song all the same, picking up where 21 left off as Adele tries to call that figure from her past to close off the last remaining loose ends. And yet she can't do that, because time has done a far more powerful job closing that door than she ever could, and that's a real revelation she needs to deal with. And I love how so much of this is framed in the very simple, very plain language of a phone call from across the world. The smart metaphors are all still there, but somehow stripping back the language and instrumentation to the very basics works obscenely well. And on that topic, you could argue that the sparse piano and Greg Kurstin's reverb touch production has become a bit of a cliche in recent years, especially if you heard the most recent Licky Lee album. But where Hello transcends it for me is on the later choruses, as the reverb and backing choir give the impression of singing out of that emptiness, and the addition of that bell toll pushes it all the further. A voice from the other side indeed. Yeah, there's a reason why this song is still topping the charts several weeks into the new Billboard year, and when We Were Young inevitably replaces it, and if it truly does, expect to see it on my year-end list next year, it's gonna be even better. Number 2. I can imagine some longtime fans of me are expecting this to be my number 1, most because it actually landed on a different list of my favorite songs of 2014. Not just the hits, all of them. Granted, it was low on that list, but that's saying something regardless, considering I was whittling that down from hundreds of tracks that I covered throughout the year to a scant 50. Now, I'll admit, it's faded a little bit since then, which is why it's not topping this year's list, but you know what? It's still incredible. One of the high points of both artists' career, and that's saying something given the year one of them had. And by now, this song needs no introduction.
'Cause if you want to keep me, you gotta got to love me harder. And if you really need me, you gotta love me harder.
If the release of Focus proved anything for me, it's that Ariana Grande is far, far better making cooing, sexually intense love songs than she is ripping off herself. Because Love Me Harder is spellbinding and how sensual and tight it is. And yeah, I know that makes me sound a little bit perverted, but on a song designed to intensify sexuality, Ariana Grande is absolutely killing this. And it's the muted mid-range keys that ebb off of the quiet reverb touch beat till that chorus expands into an ebbing current that just washes over the song. It actually works surprisingly well in contrast to The Weeknd, who, yeah, isn't as good as Ariana on the song, but his persona remains intact, and that's what makes things work. Him bringing that darker, more explicitly sexual side to the song is a perfect counterbalance to her, both because she's inviting him more into her world than the other way around, and it's ready to take whatever he can give. And I really love that seems to throw the Weeknd off a little bit. He's not used to girls who can match him in intensity, which is why his hesitation on the bridge works until Ariana throws her dominant side to meet him. The balance is damn near perfect here, and it would have easily topped this list, but number 1. Of all my picks for the best hit songs of a certain year, I'm almost certain this will be the most controversial. For one, it's the one that's most obviously flawed, at least in terms of inconsistencies that would hold me back from embracing a song in full. And yet, this is one of those cases where the things that they do connect work so damn well that it pushes beyond it, even beyond one of my favorite songs of last year. But more than that, this is a song that is just so unbelievably strong that it forced me to reevaluate my entire expectation of what this artist could deliver in the future, because if she can make hits like this, you know, I've liked Demi Lovato in the past, but my god, she brought an A-game I didn't even know she had on this song. Of course she's gonna belt, but like Ariana, she proves that she might be far better sticking with quiet restraint, at least until she can build to that crescendo. And what a crescendo it is! Building off an instantly memorable piano flourish that's later echoed in one of the most crushing and potent guitar riffs you'd hear in pop music this year, taking the more sensual waves of synth against the sparse percussion that builds up some subtle bass flourishes as that chorus just explodes. And then we get to the lyrics, which attracted a lot of curiosity for playing towards bi-curiosity, if only for a summer. What gets interesting is how much the lyrics seem to emphasize and exaggerate the danger for the two of them, with the most questionable line being "die for each other," which is a pretty hyperbolic statement for a summer fling. And yeah, plenty have made the criticisms and the comparisons to "I Kissed a Girl" by Katy Perry, but I'd argue "Cool for the Summer" actually works by not playing coy and cute, but Demi actually committing to the stakes with impressive sincerity, stakes that the instrumentation can actually back up and play off of. "I Kissed a Girl" was obnoxious novelty titillation at best, where "Cool for the Summer" goes for something deeper and more primal and more real. In other words, my favorite hit song of 2015. And while the album didn't quite deliver on the promise of this song outside of Confident, which will probably land on this list next year, if Demi wants to bring more pop rock back to the mainstream, I'm entirely on board. Great song. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. Like to like and subscribe, and be more than grateful. Rest lists are coming up soon, but till then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.